The massive lecture hall of the Galactic Academy fell silent as Professor Zixlar walked to the center platform. His 6 spindly legs clicked against the polished floor, and his blue skin shimmered under the soft lights. Students from 100 different worlds watched with all manner of eyes, sensory organs, and perception devices. Welcome to Advanced Military History, Primitive Species Combat Evolution, Professor Zixlar said, his translator converting his clicks and whistles into the standard galactic language. This semester, we will study how less developed civilizations fought before they reached space travel. A quiet buzz of excitement passed through the room. Most students at the Galactic Academy of Military Sciences came from species that had evolved beyond physical combat thousands of years ago. For them, studying warfare was like examining ancient fossils, interesting but distant relics of a less civilized time. In the third row, Krelb adjusted his position. Standing nearly 7 feet tall, the insectoid student's exoskeleton gleamed, a deep forest green. His 4 arms carefully arranged his data tablets while his compound eyes took in the room. Like most from the Mantis Nebula, Krelb's people had evolved from hive builders who rarely fought among themselves. Violence was inefficient, his people believed. Why fight when you could build? Today we begin Section E of our syllabus. Professor Zixlar continued, bringing up a holographic display of a blue-green planet, Earth, a recently discovered world whose inhabitants have just achieved faster-than-light travel and joined our Confederation merely 30 years ago. Next to Krelb, a gaseous being named Tuzok swirled inside its containment suit. I heard they still use physical weapons, it bubbled through its translator. How primitive. Krelb's mandibles clicked in agreement. My research says they've only had space travel for 2 centuries. They're practically hatchlings. Professor Zixlar tapped his control panel, and the syllabus appeared on everyone's screens. For this section, each of you will be paired with a human teaching assistant. These humans will help provide cultural context for your research. A door at the side of the lecture hall opened, and 15 humans walked in. The room immediately grew quieter. Most students had never seen a human up close before. Krelb observed them with scientific curiosity. They were smaller than he expected, with soft exteriors and only 2 arms and 2 legs. How had such fragile-looking creatures survived long enough to reach the stars? Their eyes couldn't even see the full light spectrum. Their hearing was limited. They had no natural armor. Truly, evolution had not been kind to them. Professor Zixlar began reading pairs of names. Krelb from Mantis Nebula, you will work with Lisa Martinez from Earth. A human female with dark hair pulled back and brown skin stepped forward. She wore the simple blue uniform of the Academy staff, with small silver pins on her collar that Krelb didn't recognize. She walked directly to Krelb's seat and extended her hand. Sergeant Lisa Martinez, United Earth Marines, retired. Nice to meet you, she said. Krelb carefully extended one of his smaller arms, remembering the human custom of shaking hands that he had read about. Her grip was firmer than he expected. I am Krelb, 4th-generation military strategist from Hive Tarsus, he replied. I look forward to learning about your species' primitive conflicts. If the human was offended, she didn't show it. Instead, her mouth curved slightly upward in what Krelb recognized as a smile. But there was something in her eyes that made his antennae twitch, a depth that didn't match her calm exterior. You might be surprised by what you learn, Lisa said. Across the room, other students were meeting their human partners. Vilara, a crystalline being who communicated through light pulses, was paired with a human male named Alan Nguyen. Tuzok's containment suit floated toward a dark-skinned human who introduced himself as Frank Washington. Professor Zixlar cleared his throat sacs to regain the class's attention. Your first assignment is to research Earth's major conflicts. Tomorrow, each pair will present an overview of what you've found. The archives are open to you all. As the class ended, Lisa gestured for Krelb to follow her. The Earth military archives are in the East Wing. We should start there. Krelb gathered his things. I've reviewed the basic history already. Your species had tribal conflicts, then formed nations and had larger wars. Standard evolutionary pattern for pre-space civilizations. Lisa's face remained neutral as they walked through the academy's wide corridors. Other students moved aside for Krelb's large form. Some stared at the human with curiosity or discomfort. "What kind of conflicts did your species have before space travel?" Lisa asked. Krelb's upper arms moved in a gesture of dismissal. "We didn't. The hives competed for resources through building and efficiency. The most productive hives gained more territory. Combat waste resources." They reached the archive room, a vast chamber with thousands of data terminals. Lisa led Krelb to a section marked Earth History and placed her hand on a scanner. The screen lit up with access codes. "What are you most interested in seeing first?" she asked. "Perhaps your largest conflict. I assume it involved a few thousand warriors and lasted several days, as is typical for developing worlds," Krelb said, settling his large form in front of the screen. Something flickered across Lisa's face. Was it amusement? She entered a few commands and the screen filled with data. "World War II," she said. "Over 60 countries involved. 6 years of continuous fighting. More than 70 million dead." Krelb's compound eyes widened, all sections focusing intensely on the screen. "There must be an error in the translation. 70 million? "No error," Lisa said quietly. "And that was just one of our wars." The screen filled with images that made Krelb's antennae flatten against his head. Massive formations of metal vehicles called tanks, crushing everything in their path. Flying machines raining destruction from above. Explosions that leveled entire cities. Humans fighting in frozen mountains, burning deserts, dense jungles, and vast oceans. "This can't be correct," Krelb chittered, his mandibles clicking rapidly in distress. "Your species would have gone extinct." Lisa touched a panel, bringing up more images. "These are from different conflicts throughout our history. We have records of warfare going back thousands of years." Krelb stared at the screen, his forearms unconsciously drawing closer to his body. "You fought yourselves? Without external threats?" "We did," Lisa said. She pulled up footage of something called Normandy Beach, waves of humans running into devastating fire, falling by the hundreds, yet more keeping coming. "We've had thousands of years to perfect the art of combat against the deadliest enemy. We know ourselves." A cold feeling settled in Krelb's thorax as he began to understand. Humans hadn't just survived despite their physical limitations. They had survived because they had turned themselves into something else entirely. "In the Mantis Nebula," Krelb said slowly, "we evolved from apex predators. Most spacefaring species did. It's almost a requirement for achieving dominance on a planet." Lisa nodded. "Humans didn't. We were prey animals originally. Small, weak, vulnerable. We developed intelligence and tools because we had to." Her eyes met his compound ones. "We became persistence predators. We didn't need to be the strongest or fastest. We just needed to outlast everything else." Across the archive room, Krelb noticed other alien students with their human partners. Many were showing similar signs of distress or disbelief as they reviewed Earth's combat history. Professor Zixelar moved between the groups, his extra eyes blinking nervously. "Remember, students," he called out, "Earth is now a peaceful member of the Confederation. Study their history to understand, not to judge." But as Krelb turned back to the screens showing centuries of continuous human conflict, a new question formed in his mind. How could a species with such a violent history ever truly become peaceful? Lisa seemed to read his thoughts. "Tomorrow's lesson might answer some of your questions," she said, her slight smile returning. "We'll discuss how we managed to stop fighting long enough to reach the stars." Krelb wasn't sure he wanted to know the answer. The next morning, Krelb arrived early to the archive room. He had barely slept, his mind filled with images of human warfare. He found Lisa already there, reviewing data on a screen. "Good morning," she said when she noticed him. "Ready to continue?" Krelb's mandibles clicked nervously. "I spent the night researching. Your World War II wasn't even your largest conflict, was it?" Lisa shook her head. "By death count, no. That would likely be what we call the Three Kingdoms War in ancient China, or possibly the Mongol conquests. Records from those times aren't precise. And you had more than one world war, two major ones in the same century, plus hundreds of smaller conflicts happening at the same time across the planet. Lisa brought up a global map with red dots showing active combat zones. There were dozens spread across every continent. Krelb settled his large form into the chair designed for his species. In the Mantis Nebula, we have a saying, "To fight one's own hive is to invite extinction." How did your species survive fighting itself so continuously? Lisa considered this. Humans are adaptable. We learn quickly, especially under pressure. She tapped the screen, bringing up footage of a devastated city. This is Hiroshima after we developed atomic weapons. The destruction was so severe that it actually helped end one of our world wars. You use such weapons on yourselves? Krelb's antennae flattened against his head. Once we saw the results, we created complex systems to prevent their use again. She showed him images of peace treaties, international organizations, and something called the Cold War. Fascinating, Krelb said, his scientific curiosity overcoming his initial shock. You developed methods to control your own violence. We had to, Lisa replied simply. Across the room, Vilara was speaking with her human partner, Alan Nguyen. The crystalline alien's body pulsed with colors showing distress as Alan explained something. Tuzok's gaseous form swirled agitatedly. In his containment suit while Frank Washington showed him battlefield footage, Krelb noticed other alien students checking their data repeatedly, as if hoping they had misunderstood. The room buzzed with uncomfortable conversations. "I need to understand something," Krelb said, turning back to Lisa. "These records show your enemies often had superior numbers and equipment, yet smaller human forces consistently won through."
Something called asymmetric warfare. Explain this. Lisa pulled up new images, humans fighting from hidden positions in jungles, mountains, and cities. When conventional fighting fails, humans adapt. We change the rules. You mean you cheat?
Krelb said. Lisa's mouth formed that slight smile again. We survive. In the Vietnam War, technologically superior forces were defeated by farmers with simple traps and hidden tunnels. In Afghanistan, mountain tribes held off the world's strongest militaries for decades. Krelb studied the images. This shouldn't work. Military science says the better equipped force should win. Military science didn't account for human determination, Lisa said. She showed him footage of exhausted, wounded soldiers continuing to fight. We can endure incredible hardship and keep going. Professor Zixlar entered the archive room, moving between the pairs of students and their human partners. When he reached Krelb and Lisa, his eye stalk swiveled to check their progress. How are you finding Earth's military history, student Krelb? The professor asked. Disturbing, Krelb answered honestly. Humans fight in ways that contradict established military theory. Professor Zixlar's skin changed to a lighter blue, showing concern. Indeed, that's why we added Earth's history to our curriculum. Their methods are unconventional. After the professor moved on, Lisa leaned closer to Krelb. You've only seen the physical side of human warfare. There's something else you should understand. She accessed a new section of the archives labeled Psychological Warfare. The screen filled with images of propaganda posters, civilian resistance movements, and covert operations. Combat isn't just about weapons, Lisa explained. It's about will. Breaking the enemy's will to fight often matters more than breaking their army. Krelb watched with growing unease as Lisa showed examples of psychological tactics, disinformation campaigns designed to confuse enemies, broadcasts to demoralize opposing forces, and methods to turn civilian populations against occupiers. This is why many species fear humans, Krelb said quietly. You don't just fight with your bodies, you fight with your minds. Yes, Lisa acknowledged. But there's something important you haven't seen yet. She entered a new search, and the screen showed human soldiers distributing food and medical supplies to civilians, including people who had been their enemies days before. I don't understand, Krelb said, mandibles twitching in confusion. After Fighting, we rebuild. We help our former enemies recover. Lisa showed more images. Reconstruction efforts, peace treaties, former enemies becoming allies. The same determination that makes us dangerous in war makes us valuable in peace. This concept was hard for Krelb to process. In the Mantis Nebula, conflicts were rare but absolute. Winners took everything. Losers were eliminated. The idea of helping defeated enemies was foreign. "Why would you help those you defeated?" he asked. "Because endless cycles of revenge lead nowhere," Lisa said. "We learned that the hard way. After World War II, instead of punishing the defeated nations as we did after the First World War, we helped rebuild them. Those former enemies are now our closest allies." Krelb's compound eyes studied Lisa's face. "You speak as if you've seen combat yourself." Lisa was quiet for a moment. "I served 3 tours in the Middle Eastern conflicts. I've seen enough fighting to know its cost." For the first time, Krelb noticed faint scars on Lisa's arms and a certain watchfulness in her eyes that he had missed before. This small, soft-looking human had experienced combat firsthand, something almost no one at the Academy could claim. "For tomorrow," Lisa said, changing the subject, "we need to prepare our presentation. What aspects of human combat history do you think are most important for your classmates to understand?" Krelb thought carefully. "Your adaptability, your psychological resilience, and perhaps most importantly, your capacity to make peace after war." Lisa nodded. "Good choices." Professor Zixlar also mentioned that Admiral Benson from Earth's United Space Command will be visiting the Academy next week. She'll be giving a special lecture about how Earth's combat history has shaped our role in the Confederation. "Is she a warrior too?" Krelb asked. "One of our best," Lisa said. "And now one of our most important diplomats." As they worked on their presentation, Krelb found himself reassessing everything he thought he knew about humans. His people had always considered themselves superior because they avoided conflict through efficiency and cooperation. But now he wondered if there wasn't something valuable in the human experience, something forged in their countless struggles that his own species lacked. Around the archive room, other alien students were having similar revelations. The initial shock was giving way to a new respect, tinged with wariness. These humans weren't just primitive creatures who had stumbled into space travel. They were survivors, tested by fire in ways most spacefaring species had never experienced. And Krelb couldn't help but wonder what that meant for the future of the Galactic Confederation. The next few days passed in a blur of research and presentations. Each alien student and their human partner shared what they had learned about Earth's combat history. The lecture hall hummed with a new kind of energy, a mixture of fascination and unease. Vilara's crystalline form glowed a deep purple as she described human guerrilla warfare tactics. "They hide among their own population," she explained, light patterns pulsing across her surface. "They strike quickly and disappear. Superior forces cannot find them to fight." Her human partner, Alan Nguyen, added, "When conventional warfare is impossible, humans adapt. We use the environment, surprise, and unconventional tactics." Tuzok's gaseous form swirled nervously in his containment suit as he discussed human weapons development. "Their technology advanced faster during wartime," he bubbled through his translator. "Necessity drove innovation at rates unprecedented in galactic history." By the end of the week, the class had developed a more complete picture of human warfare. It wasn't just the violence that disturbed them. Most species had violent periods in their distant past. What made humans different was their creativity, adaptability, and persistence in combat. They simply didn't give up, even when logic said they should. Professor Zixlar addressed the class as the final presentation concluded. "Next week, we will explore the psychological aspects of human combat in greater detail. This is perhaps the most important element to understand." Krelb found Lisa waiting for him outside the lecture hall the following day. "Today, we're going to a different archive," she said. "The psychological warfare section." They walked through the Academy's curved corridors, passing various alien species engrossed in their own studies. The Academy had been the center of galactic military education for centuries, but Earth's addition to the curriculum was recent and controversial. The new archive room was smaller and required special access. Lisa placed her hand on the scanner, and the door slid open with a soft hiss. Inside, Krelb was surprised to find the other human teaching assistants already gathered with their alien partners. Frank Washington nodded to Lisa as they entered. "Welcome to the fun part," Frank said, his deep voice carrying through the room. "Today, we get into the human mind during warfare." The screens activated, showing a different kind of battle footage. Soldiers sharing jokes while under artillery fire, medics treating wounded enemies, troops adopting local children in war zones, enemies who had fought brutally one day working together the next after a surrender. "I don't understand," Tuzok bubbled, his containment suit rising slightly in agitation. "These behaviors contradict each other." Frank nodded. "That's the point. Humans compartmentalize. We can see enemies as threats to eliminate and civilians as people to protect, sometimes in the same moment." Krelb's compound eyes focused on footage of soldiers laughing together after a near-death experience. "Why do they seem happy after almost dying?" "Gallows humor," Lisa explained. "Laughing at death is sometimes the only way to keep going. We joke about the things that terrify us." The screens changed to show psychological operations. Leaflets dropped over enemy territory promising good treatment for those who surrendered. Radio broadcasts designed to demoralize opposing forces, and complex deception campaigns that made enemies believe attacks would come from different directions. "But this contradicts your empathic capabilities," Tuzok said to Frank. "You deceive and then show kindness. You kill and then save lives." Frank shrugged. "We're complicated." Vilara's crystalline body flickered with confusion. "How do you decide who is an enemy and who is not? How do you switch between these states so quickly?" Alan Nguyen, her human partner, considered this. "Training, partly. But also our ability to separate the individual from the group. We might fight against a country while still recognizing the humanity of its people." The aliens struggled with this concept. Most species in the Confederation had evolved, with clear distinctions. Allies were always allies, enemies were always enemies. The human ability to shift between these categories was unsettling. "There's something else you should understand," Lisa said, entering a new command into the system. The screens changed to show human soldiers with distant stares, some shaking, some completely still. "Combat stress reactions," she explained quietly. "What we used to call shell shock, now known as post-traumatic stress. Fighting takes a toll on us mentally and emotionally." The images showed treatment centers, therapy sessions, and support groups. "We break too," Lisa continued, "but we've developed ways to heal." Krelb studied the images carefully. "So your psychological resilience isn't without cost." "No," Lisa acknowledged, "but we've learned to recover, to help each other heal. That's part of our combat evolution too." The class spent hours analyzing these psychological aspects. They learned about concepts alien to most species: fighting for ideals rather than resources, sacrificing for comrades, and finding meaning in suffering. During a break, Krelb noticed Lisa standing alone, looking at an image of a memorial wall with thousands of names. "Is that from one of your wars?" he asked, moving beside her. Lisa nodded. "The Vietnam War. Each name is someone who died." "Did you lose comrades in your own combat?" Krelb asked carefully. Lisa was quiet for a moment. "Yes. 3 in my unit during my second tour. 1 was my closest friend." Krelb didn't know what to say. In the Mantis Nebula, death was acknowledged efficiently and life continued. The human way of remembering, of carrying their dead with them in memory, was foreign to him. "Yet you continue to serve, to teach," he observed. "We carry on," Lisa said simply. "That's what humans do. We remember, we grieve, but we continue." As the day ended, Professor Zixelar entered the archive room. "I trust today's studies were informative," he said, his blue skin shifting slightly, in hue, a sign of nervousness that Krelb had begun to recognize. "Professor," Vilara's crystalline voice chimed, Why was Earth admitted to the Confederation with this history? Other species were required to be peaceful for thousands of years before admission. The professor's eye stalks swiveled uncomfortably. That is a complex political question. Perhaps Admiral Benson can address it in her lecture tomorrow. As they left the archive, the alien students clustered together, speaking in low tones. Their human partners kept a respectful distance, allowing them to process what they had learned. They're more dangerous than we realized. Tuzok bubbled quietly. Yes, Krelb agreed, but not in the way we thought. What do you mean? Velara asked, her crystalline surface pulsing with curiosity. Most species would be broken by such continuous conflict, Krelb explained. But humans used it to become stronger, more adaptable. They don't just survive trauma, they learn from it. The aliens fell silent, considering this. Around them, the Academy continued its normal activities. Students from across the galaxy pursuing knowledge in peaceful harmony, but the perspective of the Earth Studies group had shifted fundamentally. Tomorrow, Admiral Benson would speak. And Krelb suspected they might finally learn the real reason humans had been welcomed into the Confederation so quickly, despite their violent history, or perhaps because of it. The main lecture hall was filled beyond capacity for Admiral Patricia Benson's talk. News of the Earth Studies class had spread throughout the Academy, drawing students and faculty from other departments. Even species that normally avoided discussions of violence had come to learn about the newest members of the Confederation. Krelb arrived early with Lisa and secured seats near the front. Around them, the air buzzed with conversations in dozens of languages, all translated through personal devices. Is the Admiral truly a warrior? Krelb asked Lisa as they waited. 30 years in Earth's naval forces, Lisa confirmed. She commanded ships in 3 different conflicts before helping form the United Space Command. The lights dimmed and Professor Zixlar moved to the center platform. Esteemed colleagues and students, he began, his translator converting his clicks and whistles to standard language. Today we welcome Admiral Patricia Benson of Earth's United Space Command. A small door at the side of the stage opened, and Admiral Benson walked out. Krelb was surprised by her appearance. She was older than Lisa, with short gray hair and a straight posture. Her uniform was simple, dark blue with minimal decorations. She didn't look like the living weapon the alien students now imagined all humans to be. The Admiral approached the speaking platform calmly, her eyes scanning the diverse audience. When she spoke, her voice was measured and clear. Thank you for the invitation to speak today, she began. I understand your class has been studying Earth's combat history. She tapped a control, and a holographic display appeared beside her showing Earth from space. 30 years ago, when we achieved faster-than-light travel and were discovered by your exploration ships, many in the Confederation questioned whether Earth should be admitted, she continued. Our history of conflict concerned you. Some argued, we were too dangerous, too unpredictable. Several audience members shifted uncomfortably. This direct acknowledgement of political tensions was unusual in the formal setting of the Academy. Those concerns were valid, Admiral Benson said. Humans have fought more wars against ourselves than most species have fought in total. We've developed weapons that could destroy our own planet. We've perfected the art of killing. The room was completely silent now. Krelb noticed his own hands had tightened into fists without his conscious intention. But our history of conflict gave us perspective when we reached the stars. The Admiral continued, her tone softening slightly. We recognized the patterns of potential war before they developed. We understood escalation, provocation, and the subtle signs that lead to violence. And most importantly, we knew their cost. She changed the display to show a map of the galaxy with various points highlighted. In the 30 years since Earth joined the Confederation, human diplomats and strategists have quietly helped prevent 17 potential interspecies conflicts. A murmur of surprise ran through the audience. This was not public knowledge. The Rigelian trade dispute 3 years ago, Admiral Benson said, highlighting one section of the map. Our diplomats recognized the same patterns that preceded Earth's resource wars. We suggested solutions before fighting began. She highlighted another section. The border tension between the Proxima Coalition and the Tau Ceti Alliance. We deployed peacekeeping ships as a neutral party, while negotiations proceeded. The same strategy we used in our own Middle Eastern conflicts. Krelb's compound eyes widened as he processed this information. Across the room, other alien students showed similar signs of surprise. We know the signs because we've lived them, Admiral Benson said, her voice now passionate but controlled. And we've chosen to be the galaxy's immune system rather than its virus. She paused, letting her words sink in. Then she continued more quietly. The Confederation didn't admit Earth despite our violent history. They welcomed us because of it. The silence in the room deepened as the implications became clear. In a galaxy of species that had evolved without significant internal conflict, humans were uniquely qualified to recognize and prevent war. Vilara's crystalline form glowed with a mix of colors showing confusion and revelation. Tuzok's containment suit was completely still for the first time since Krelb had met him. Admiral Benson continued her lecture, describing specific cases where human intervention had prevented escalation between species. She explained how strategies developed during Earth's conflicts had been adapted to interspecies diplomacy. She showed recordings of human peacekeepers working in disputed zones, gaining trust through a combination of strength and compassion that other species found difficult to balance. We make good peacekeepers precisely because we understand war, she explained. We know what it costs. We've paid that price too many times to let others pay it if we can help it. After nearly an hour, Admiral Benson opened the floor to questions. There was a moment of hesitation, then Krelb raised one of his arms. Admiral, he began, his translator clicking slightly with his nervousness. What happens if diplomacy fails? If a species chooses conflict despite human intervention? The room grew tense. This was the question many had wanted to ask, but none had dared to voice. What would these battle-hardened humans do if challenged? Admiral Benson's face remained composed, but Krelb noticed a subtle change in her posture, a slight straightening of her back, a focusing of her eyes. Then we remember our history, she said quietly. So the galaxy doesn't have to learn it firsthand. Her smile didn't reach her eyes, and for a brief moment, Krelb glimpsed something beneath the Admiral's diplomatic exterior. The warrior she had been, and in some ways still was. The room remained silent for several heartbeats. Then Vilara raised her crystalline appendage. Is this why human representatives are now included in all major Confederation security councils? She asked, her voice chiming like glass. Admiral Benson nodded. Yes. Initially, some species objected to our inclusion, but after the Arcturus incident, where human analysts correctly predicted a separatist attack, our role expanded. More questions followed. The Admiral answered each one directly, neither hiding Earth's violent tendencies nor apologizing for them. Instead, she spoke of how humans had learned to channel their protective instincts toward maintaining peace. As the lecture concluded and students began to file out, Krelb remained seated, processing everything he had heard. Lisa waited beside him patiently. Your Admiral spoke of humans as peacekeepers, Krelb said finally. But I sensed there was more she didn't say. Lisa glanced toward the stage where Admiral Benson was speaking quietly with Professor Zixalar. There's a human saying, Lisa replied. Speak softly and carry a big stick. We prefer peace, we work for peace, but we prepare for war because we know it can happen despite our best efforts. Krelb's antennae twitched thoughtfully. The Confederation has existed for 2,000 years without major conflict. Many species believed war was a primitive phase we had all outgrown. Peace isn't a phase you outgrow, Lisa said. It's a garden you tend constantly, sometimes with gentle care, sometimes by pulling weeds. As they left the lecture hall, Krelb noticed other alien students looking at their human partners differently, with a new mixture of respect, wariness, and something else he couldn't quite identify. Perhaps it was gratitude. The final week of the Primitive Species Combat Evolution course arrived faster than any of the students expected. Professor Zixalar announced that each student-human pair would present their conclusions about Earth's military history and its implications for the Confederation. Your presentations will form the basis of your final evaluation, the professor explained, his blue skin shifting to a more formal dark shade. Consider not just what you've learned about human combat, but how it has changed your understanding of interspecies relations. The night before the presentations, Krelb worked late in the archive room with Lisa. Around them, other pairs were doing the same, the room filled with quiet discussions in multiple languages. I still have questions, Krelb admitted as they organized their data. If humans are so skilled at preventing conflicts, why did you have so many on your own planet? Lisa considered this. It's easier to see patterns from the outside. When you're caught in your own history, surrounded by your own prejudices and fears, it's harder to step back and see the larger picture. Like being too close to read the words, Krelb said, using a Mantis Nebula expression. Lisa smiled. Exactly.
In space, we gained perspective. We saw other species making the same mistakes we had made.
It was like watching our own history from a distance. The next morning, the lecture hall was filled again. This time, Admiral Benson sat in the back row, observing quietly. Several other high-ranking Confederation officials had also come to hear the presentations. Lara and Alan went first. The crystalline alien's body pulsed with confident colors as she began. When I started this course, I expected to study primitive combat techniques, her translator chimed. Instead, I discovered that humans evolved not just to survive conflict, but to learn from it. Each war led to new concepts of peace. Alan showed footage of Earth's United Nations, peace treaties, and international laws that developed after major conflicts. We didn't just fight, he explained. We created systems to prevent fighting in the future. Tuzok's presentation focused on human technological development. Their capacity for violence drove innovation, he bubbled through his translator. But their desire for peace directed it. Medical treatments, communication systems, and even space travel accelerated because of lessons learned in warfare. Frank added, the same determination that made us dangerous in war made us effective in peace. We apply the same focus to both. Each presentation revealed how deeply the alien students had been affected by what they had learned. Species that had previously avoided humans now spoke of their unique contribution to galactic security. Others that had feared humans now expressed cautious appreciation for their protective role. Finally, it was Krelb's turn. He moved his large form carefully to the front of the room, Lisa beside him. I came to this class believing my people superior, because we avoided conflict through efficiency and cooperation, Krelb began, his mandibles clicking thoughtfully. I thought humans were primitive because they fought so often. I was wrong on both counts. He displayed images from human history, not just of warfare, but of the peace efforts that followed. What makes humans unique is not their capacity for violence, but their ability to learn from it, to grow beyond it, without forgetting its lessons. Lisa stepped forward. We carry our history with us, she said. Not to repeat it, but to recognize its patterns. In the 30 years since joining the Confederation, human security forces have identified 17 potential conflicts before they escalated. Krelb continued. The Confederation has existed for 2,000 years without major war. Many believed conflict was a primitive phase all species outgrow. But peace isn't automatic, it requires constant maintenance. And vigilance, Lisa added. Sometimes maintaining peace means being prepared for war. Krelb's compound eyes swept across the audience. In my culture, we build. It's how we compete, how we thrive. Humans build too, but they've also had to defend, to fight, to survive against themselves. This has given them skills the rest of us lack. At the back of the room, Admiral Benson nodded slightly. I no longer see humans as primitive, Krelb concluded. I see them as teachers. They understand the cost of conflict better than any of us because they've paid that price repeatedly. Now they use that knowledge to protect us all. The presentation ended to silence, then a wave of clicking, humming, and other sounds that served as applause among the diverse species present. As they returned to their seats, Krelb noticed many eyes, and other sensory organs, following them. The perception of humans throughout the academy had changed dramatically in just a few weeks. Professor Zixlar addressed the class after the final presentation. You have all shown remarkable insight. Your work will help inform Confederation policy on integrating human security forces into our existing structures. The professor's skin shifted to a formal purple. I am pleased to announce that the Academy Board has approved a new permanent course: Earth, Combat History, and Peacekeeping Applications. Several of you will be invited to continue this research. After class, Admiral Benson approached Krelby and Lisa. Impressive work, she said. We need more Confederation species to understand what humans bring to galactic security. Admiral, Krelb asked, was this course partly a political effort to help others accept humans in security roles? The Admiral smiled slightly. Education is always political in its way. Understanding leads to acceptance. Later, as the Academy prepared for the next semester, Krelb found Lisa in the gardens. The human sat quietly on a bench, watching the twin suns set over the horizon. I received my new assignment, Krelb said, settling his large form beside her. I'll be working with the Joint Human Confederation Security Team in the Orion sector. Lisa smiled. They need good analysts. You'll do well there. Are you disappointed? Krelb asked after a moment, learning that we're not the noble explorers you might have hoped for when you joined the Academy. Lisa watched the setting suns, her face illuminated by their fading light. No, I'm reassured. Why? Krelb's antennae twitched with curiosity. The galaxy is not always kind, Lisa replied. Professor Zixlar teaches this, but now I know there are those who have faced unkindness and chosen to be better because of it, not despite it. Krelb considered this. In his world, strength came from avoiding weakness. Humans found strength by overcoming it, by learning from failure and pain. People have a saying, he offered. The strongest hive is built where the winds are harshest. Perhaps humans are strong because your history was harsh. Perhaps, Lisa agreed. Or perhaps we're still learning to be strong in the right ways. Across the academy, other alien students were having similar conversations with their human partners. Old fears were being replaced by new understanding. The course that had begun as a study of primitive warfare had become something else entirely, a bridge between species with very different evolutionary paths. In his office, Professor Zixlar updated the course description for next semester. The title now read, Earth, How Combat History Created Peacekeepers. Applications tripled immediately, and in the years that followed, graduates of the course became the strongest advocates for human integration into galactic security forces. They understood what others feared. Humanity's greatest strength wasn't their capacity for war, but their first-hand knowledge of why peace was worth protecting at all costs.